Good evening. Fourth video we've recorded this evening. I know it's a good evening out there. My name's Ross, Hawklord 2112 Kingston. Welcome to this video. This is the third video in a two-part video series called Top 10 Tabletop Role-Playing Games That Aren't D&D 5e and Why. These have been done in no particular order. The first video that I recorded was the runners-up, which is the 10 games that didn't quite make the cut of the top 10 games that I've got. And these, I've done the first 5 already. The previous video probably there somewhere. And this is the other 5. Like I said, these are in no particular order. They're basically in the order that I thought of them. I didn't want to rank them because I like all of these games. I like all of my games. And this is not me dunking massively on D&D 5e. If that's been your gateway into this hobby, you are welcome. There are other things to try. And one of the biggest complaints that I've seen is that it can be, well, it's too expensive to learn a game that isn't D&D 5e because you've got to buy all the books and everything. All of the games that I'm looking at cost less. You can do it. So, changed it so I've put the stack of books on the chair in front of me, not on the table beside me, because my back was twisting out a little bit. I thought I'd done all of the small format books, however I had not. Into the Odd. This is by Chris McDowell, Bastionland Press, through Free League Publishing. I think it's available through Free League's website or via Modifius, I think, in the UK. Cost me about 35 quid. You've got gritty, very old school feeling games of desperate people going into holes in the ground, braving weirdness and strangeness. It's a parallel game to Electric Bastionland. In fact, Bastion is mentioned in this, but the rules are ever so slightly different, because whereas Bastionland involves navigating around the city of Bastion, this involves delving further into the odd, be it the deep dark, but the spaces around the city. Very simple character generation. You need a set of polyhedral dice. It's a very simple D20 OSR system. The system behind this one is the one that is in Runecairn and a couple of others. It's nice and straightforward. And like I say, again, it's a very beautiful book. You read it, you get inspired because the artwork, you've got basic character generation, you've got world building, you've got adventuring, you've got very simple. The rules are about 2 pages of this, and there's a starter adventure in there as well. Nice and simple. So if you like some old school D&D, this is a good new version of old school D&D. Got another one of those coming a bit later. Jiggly cameras. Next up, Not to the End from Mana Project Studio. Italian role-playing game. Diceless. What you need is, this game's about 40 quid. It's a nice 11-inch square scrapbook size. This is a storytelling game through and through. It doesn't use dice, it uses tokens. They do their own tokens, but if you've got poker chips, you just need 2 different colours and a ready supply of them. Character sheet is what drew me into this one. It's a load of hexagons, and you know, I'm a sucker for hexagons. This is a wonderful storytelling game, and the core mechanic of it is how much will you risk to do the challenge that you're looking to do. It's very broad strokes. It's not a crunchy game at all, but what it does is it gives you a very good framework for telling some very, very good stories. And being very generic but very lightweight, it will work for your sci-fi, it'll work for your fantasy, it'll work for high fantasy. I don't know if it's going to handle like wizards with hundreds and hundreds of spells. Actually, it probably would do, because it's all down to the way that you describe things. It's beautiful as well. The artwork on the inside of it, again, there's a free quick start on the website, which has got pretty much everything that you need to play it. The only thing it doesn't have is some of the game settings that come with it. Got 5 or 6 decent settings in this, and character advancement rules. There are cards that go with characters, the lessons that your characters can learn, and again available as a separate book deck of cards, but they are available as a PDF that you can download and print out yourself. So costs 80 quid all in, and this will do supers. This will do everything that people want to somehow reskin that game to do with a lot less effort, and tells really good stories. One of the nice things about this one is that character death, you know, it's up to you. If it's a good point of the story for your character to bow out, then it would be the end. Until then, not the end. It's in the name. Similar rules on this one. Oh crikey, I keep on forgetting how heavy this one is the Wildsea by Felix Isaacs and Mythworks. This needs 6-sided dice, and that's it. This was about 55 quid. It is a beautiful hardcover book. You probably need about 5 or 6 6-sided dice each, so not too onerous on that one there. It is a game about pirates sailing atop a sea of giant trees that suddenly grew up to cover the world 300 years ago, and hijinks. And it's a game of survival. So the trees are powered, fueled by this mutative psychoactive substance called creserin that twists things that it touches. It's harsh, it's dangerous. There's not a lot of land, and what land there is could possibly only be temporary. The character kind of kiths, the races that you play are very strange. There are humans, but there are also sentient cacti. There are also characters which are humanoid moths that repupate and discard their memories every couple of months. There are sentient fungi. You could play as a colony of spiders wearing a skin that they've built up from themselves. You could play as a sentient pile of ship rubble. You could play as the mutated returning creatures which are X's of humanity melded with gelatinous blobs. It's wonderful, it's beautiful, again very, very inspiring. It's a little bit target specific. A lot of the games that I've been looking at have been a bit more general in scope, but it's a very good way of doing it. If you like listening to podcast actual plays, My First Dungeon have just wrapped up a playthrough of this. It's really good. It's really good. Gave me a lot of ideas. So shout out to My First Dungeon. Thank you for doing that one. A beautiful book for the shelf if you like collecting beautiful looking books. And again, it's a very odd format. It opens like sideways. So it's not A4 tipped on its side. It's an odd format. So yeah, Wildsea. And like I say, about 55 quid. And not much other than standard D6s. Next one, proper size book now. The Cypher System rulebook from Monty Cook Games. This again is about 50 quid. It uses D20s, every so often D6s and D%, so nothing custom. There are a lot of cards that you can get. You don't need them. I've got a lot of them, but then again, this is me. You don't actually need them. And this is the generic version of the rules that power their game Numenera. It's the rules that power their game The Strange. And in theory, it's the rules that power Invisible Sun and No Thank You Evil, which are their kind of boutique, weird fantasy game and their kids game. This is very, very generic. I went through and I built most of my stock characters using this, and it took me maybe half an hour per character to do 20 odd characters. Yeah, nice and simple. Very player forward, very player focused, very simple dice mechanic. This is the offshoot of Monty Cook and his wisdom of saying, right, well, if you go state your intent, make your dice roll, do the maths, determine success or failure, the tension is where the dice roll is. So after the dice roll, you've got all the maths to do before you work out if you, I'm going to put that down for a sec, before you work out if you succeeded or not. What this does is it says, right, you state your intention, you do all of your maths first, and then you make your dice roll. So you do the build up of all of the stuff and then the tense moments. And then you've got ways of getting rerolls. There's ways that other players can give you rerolls. Nice and simple, but it's very simple and straightforward. And it's just based on a D20, roll nice and high. Yeah. Numenera was the game that really kicked me off as a Monty Cook stan. And my name's Indy in Trouble. Managed to kickstart that one way back when. And yeah, it is a wonderful game. I didn't choose Numenera itself because the current version of Numenera comes in at over £100. And one of my goals with these lists was to put in games that would cost you less than D&D to start off. And last, by no means least, and not at the top of the list, I'll be brutally honest, I said there was going to be another old school dungeon crawler, and people probably know what's coming up. Dungeon Crawl Classics. Now, this hefty, chunky, I know I got the softback, not the hardcover version of it, tome. This cost me about 25 or 30 quid. It was on sale. You can normally find it for certainly £50 or less. Has a bestiary, has a starter adventure. Don't get confused, so caught up with all the different editions of this. The only difference, I believe, is a slight change to some of the appendices, and the starter adventure in the back of it is different. This takes that experience of playing a group of nobodies who go into a hole in the ground and come out changed, if they come out alive at all. It is weird fantasy. It's not quite so weird as Troika is, but then again, there's Mutant Crawl Classics if you want a post-apocalyptic version of this. I think somebody's done a Wild West version as well, or Weird West version. This is old school fantasy, in my opinion, at its best. To the degree that when you generate characters, and there's an online character generator that will do a character sheet or start a character sheet in a single click, you generate 4 0-level characters each. You don't have to give them names. It's only after they come out of the dungeon the first time, if they come out the dungeon the first time, that they then start looking at being able to survive further. Nice thing about it is that there are tons of adventures. The adventures that they themselves have published run from 10 to 15 quid, although there are big deluxe box sets as well. They've done the Dying Earth as a setting. They've done Lankmar as a setting. There's another one I don't quite remember off the top of my head, but they've done their own adventures, and you can you follow them in paths. There are a few free RPG Day adventures that they've done, which use that system of rules, and there are free PDFs that people have put up. If again you're a certain age and you're hankering for Redbox or BECME, this is there, but it adds a dash of weirdness to the degree where if you are casting spells, you make a spell casting roll, and if you roll well enough, your magic missile just doesn't do 1d4 damage or 1d4 plus 1 damage per missile. It does 1d6 plus 1 damage per missile and has a longer range. Or if you do really well, you can do 10d10 damage to somebody anywhere on the same plane as you from the same spell. You cock it up, you're still balked. It is wonderful. And again, if you are a role player, if you are a 5e player, if you can find a copy of this for 20 or 30 quid, pick it up, and you will probably learn a lot about where the game came from. Again, it uses, dice-wise, it doesn't quite use a standard set of polyhedral dice. It uses what's called a Zocchi set of dice, which are your normal polyhedrals, a d20, 2d10s for your percentages, a d12, d8, d6, d4. But it also includes a d24 and a d30 and a d7 and a d5. Because one of the nice things about this is, say if you're playing a fighter, you start going up in levels, you start using that d24 to hit rather than a d20. And at some point you might even use a d30 to hit. You might start using a d16. Now Zocchi dice, you can get them for about 12-13 quid off the A to Z site. You can get their official dice for about 25 quid. They sell out very, very quickly, but they are very nice. They come in tubes, about 25 quid, and the tube, they're kind of themed colour dice, but you've got the stats for a monster tucked inside the tube. This has a bestiary, this has a starter adventure, character generation, world building, all of those things. All in 35 quid plus some dice. So as I was saying, if you're a 5e player, pick this up and you'll possibly get a hint of where this game started. I started off Redbox, I am that old, and this reminds me of that more than anything else. More than anything else. Strange enough, I snagged a PDF of the Redbox rules, and it brought back so many memories, painful ones at times. Yeah. Anyway, there is the second half of my top 10 tabletop role-playing games that aren't D&D 5e and why they are better than D&D 5e. If you have thoughts, if you have comments, if you have questions, if you want to agree with them, if you want to shout up games that you think that I've missed, leave a comment. I'm here, I'm on the Bird site, I'm on the Instagram, but I don't use them. I'm Hawklord2112 everywhere on the internet, even out playing Ingress. Nice and simple. Roll well, and I will see you soon with whatever the next video I choose to do is.